You're watching TVC News, and these are live pictures of our ongoing coverage of the funeral of the late Pope Francis, who died on Easter Monday this week at the age of 88. His funeral has just ended at the Vatican, and his coffin is now being carried in a slow procession to the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore, located in Rome, where he will be finally interred after 4 days of lying in state at the Vatican. From information available to TVC News, the procession is leaving the Vatican City following a 6-kilometer route over the Tiber River, and then it will make its way through central Rome, passing by the Colosseum before turning to arrive at the Santa Maria Maggiore. Earlier in the day, thousands, hundreds of thousands of mourners, including world leaders such as American President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and many more, had gathered at the Vatican, St. Peter's Square, to pay their last respect to the late Pope. But unlike what we saw during the first few hours of today, that just ended a few moments ago, the actual burial will not be, people will not be allowed to view the actual burial, at least in person, because the burial is going to take place inside the church and so will not be open to the public. But that has still not stopped the interest that this moment has garnered from across the world, as many people still remain glued to their TV sets and other devices watching this procession now, of course conveying the remains of the late Pope to his final resting place at Santa Maria Maggiore. All right, you're watching TVC News, live pictures yet again as we continue our commentary and coverage of the funeral and burial of Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church all over the world, who died at the age of 88 earlier this week, Easter Monday to be precise. The funeral service just ended at St. Peter's Square at the Vatican, and now his body is being conveyed in a procession slowly to his final resting place, which is at the church of Santa Maria Maggiore, located in Rome. And we are seeing a large procession, a long procession, but then we are also seeing several crowds of people thronging the sides of the street. They cannot join the procession, but they've been barricaded just on both sides of the entire stretch leading to the Santa Maria Maggiore site where the Pope will be buried. And they're all there paying their last respect. Unlike what we saw at the funeral service and the hours leading to it, several people, hundreds of thousands of people, were allowed into the St. Peter's Square arena. There were also several world leaders who were there, but the service has ended and many of these world leaders have exited the scene. We understand that these crowds will not be allowed into the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome for the burial. It's going to be a rather private one, unlike what we saw during the funeral service that ended moments ago.
Yes, yes, he did. Yeah. It all comes together. It seems like such a long time ago.
Really does. And our television viewers here can see we're back in the sunshine there. We were just on the Via Meru line.
We're still watching live pictures now from Rome, where the remains of the late Pope Francis are now being conveyed to his final resting place located in the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica, where he will be finally interred after 4 days of lying in state. So this is where the late Pope will finally be buried. And earlier today, there was a well-attended funeral service at the St. Peter's Square, viewed by hundreds of thousands of mourners. Official reports say 250,000 mourners were there at the St. Peter's Square, where the funeral service of Pope Francis held. There were several world leaders in attendance, including US President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Zelensky, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and Prince Williams, who represented his father, King Charles. A strong Nigerian contingent was also in attendance at the funeral service. Senate President Godswill Akpabio, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Bianca Odumegwu Ojukwu was also in attendance. And happening now, the coffin of Pope Francis has now arrived Santa Maria Maggiore. This was after it had passed through several streets of Rome, heading to the final resting place after the funeral service ended at the St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. The funeral service was replete with a mass, a communion that was given to all present, for as many as wished to partake in the Holy Communion. And there were prayers, hymns, and psalms recited in honor of Pope Francis. There were prayers for the repose of his soul and for the unity of the Church. as the coffin now arrives to be taken to the Basilica of the Santa Maria Maggiore for the interment. Pope Francis is making history as the first pope since Leo XIII, who died in 1903, to be buried outside the Vatican. The Pope was a Jesuit, a Catholic religious order of priests known for their dedication to education and missionary work. He was also a devotee of the Virgin Mary, and according to his wishes, in the will he made a few years ago, he chose to be buried here at Santa Maria Maggiore, which sits outside the Vatican walls in the center of Rome.